And focus of chapter 7 is that we take every opportunity to speak as if it's the last one we have. That will put our best foot forward. It's always good to give our best to what we do. We never know if that's the one that would make a difference in our life. You never know who's watching. You never know where what you are doing at each point in time will go. Right? I get to do this every Sunday. It's unimaginable where it's going. People who's watching it, right? It's unimaginable the kind of front it's going to open up to me, and it's already opening up to me, right? If I take it for granted, then whatever goal has outlined out there for me, for this to lead into that next phase, I begin to be the one blocking what God has earmarked for me, right? So every single one, I need to put my heart into it. I need to put my best into it, right? It's not so that not because I want to impress anybody, but just because I can be all that God wants me to be, so that I can, as it were, cooperate with God in what He's doing in my life. Because anytime I do anything less than I can do, I begin to be an hindrance to whatever it is that God is doing and wants to do as a result of what I am doing. Right? Remember, nothing just happens, right? And God says, I'm not mocked, right? Whatsoever a person does, that is what he will reap. God might be set to take you to whatever height. If you don't agree with Him, if you don't do your part of it, God cannot, against your will, take you there. God needs our participation. Without our participation, God can do nothing in our life. Nothing in our life, right? I will see that example in Jesus Christ, right? He went to a place and wanted to do miracles, but because the people did not believe, He could not do as much as He wanted to do, even though He had all the power to do it. God will never go against our free agency, right? So let's go on to slide 7 here. In slide 7, T.D. Jakes is pretty much quoting Mark Twain, right? He would say it usually takes more than 3 weeks to prepare a good impromptu speech, meaning that it takes a whole lot to prepare, right? And you have to give it your best. Don't take anyone for granted, because you can easily get messed up, right? In the process of this book reading, I've shared with you my own experience. 2 times I've been on the podium and I had nothing to say. I knew the topic, I knew the scriptures, but they were not just flowing together, right? I could use my head to ramble around it, but that's not the standard that I hold myself to. So I could not say anything on those 2 occasions. It was an embarrassment, no doubt. But there were good things that happened to me, because today I do everything to avoid that ever happening to me. So everything I do, every talk I give, every preparation I make is preparing me for the next message, right? Because I am the message, right? So everything I'm doing becomes me. I'm not just doing it for occasion. It is my life. It is my person. Everything I'm sharing right now is going to be used for another message I'm going to do next time, right? So every single thing I do, I am building up. I am becoming, right? So even when I get called to give a talk impromptu, right? It's what I already have stored inside there that's going to flow out, right? So I make use of every opportunity to prepare, both for the message I know and the one I don't know. Because if I'm on a continuous growing process, there will always be something to come out, right? When you squeeze the fruit, it's what's inside the fruit that will come out. So it's up to us to make sure there's something inside that fruit that is good enough, right? So we prepare, both in season and out of season, so that there will always be something good that we can do to impact wherever it is that we're called to give a talk or to share, right? And T.D. Jakes goes on in the book and says, words can have the force of bullets without the violence, carnage, fatalities, which makes them even more powerful in their ability to affect change. So words are powerful. We know that, right? In scripture, it says that the power of life and death is in the tongue. Words can kill. Words can make alive. And we see examples, right? In Iran, the monarch there was overthrown just by the Ayatollahs sending tapes into Iran to, as it were, indoctrinate the people against the monarch there. That's how they took over. Same thing happened in Russia, right? As communism came, right? Words are powerful, and they can be used for good, can be used for evil. You know, it can be words that are true, and it can be words that are false. But depending on the way it's presented, it has the same power. It can cut both ways. It can make good, it can make bad, right? The once the person receives and believes in that word, it changes the person, right? So we should also respect that when we have opportunities to share, right? Because what we're sharing has a power to change the life and lives that are our audience, right? And we'll go on to slide 9 there. And it goes on in the book and says, when your moment at the mic arrives, your audience, just pretty much saying that each time you come to talk, right, especially if it's a new audience you're talking to, they already have an idea of who you are. They already have an impression of who you are. So your first 60 seconds, 90 seconds will either solidify that impression or break it apart, which could be either positive or negative, right? Depending on how they view you will determine on how receptive they are to the message that you have to deliver, right? So you need to sell yourself, and you have to be careful in doing that. Selling yourself just means that you give it your best. You don't take it for granted. It's not for you to belittle your message. It's not for you to water it down. It's not for you to say things that are against what you believe, because it is important for you to be authentic. It is important for you to speak from a depth within you out, right? The key thing is that you give it the seriousness, right, that it requires, right? And that's the key thing, right? You're not trying to deceive people, because that's not what we're talking about here. So you should be authentic, or give it the seriousness that it requires. Because if what you're saying doesn't touch you, it cannot touch the people that you're trying to say it to. And that's what it goes on to say here, because they decide whether they're going to listen to what you're saying or not by the way you construct yourself and what you say, right? And so it's important that you take it seriously, and you, as part of your preparation, imagine yourself being in their shoes, right? And speak from that empathic position, right? Don't speak over their head, right? Because communication is about them receiving it, and you're able to also get the feedback that they're receiving it. So until they receive it, you're wasting your time, right? And their time also.